a half now. We've gone to lots of protests. We've been to universities. We've been around the UK. But something very different has happened, and that's that people are now absolutely furious about this. There's a electricity almost in the air of people who have completely had enough of all of it.
It's now confirmed that Europe is being forcibly merged under the EU with Islam. There's deals made with Saudi Arabia and others. Saudi Arabia has come out and said, we've been told to build mosques in Europe. We've been told to do this. This is what the Catholic Church wants. It's what the new Pope wants. They want abortion. Ireland just legalized abortion. It'll be a sacrament soon. Well, Kalen Robertson has been there when this happened to Tommy. He's been covering the live events as they scaled the gates there at 10 Downing Street, almost total news blackout. Now they're at Speaker's Corner. He just got back to his place after all of this. They're in London. And if you just joined us on all those radio and TV stations out there, I think it's better if Kalen describes to you, just in a snapshot, who Tommy is. Most people know, now they do. And then the order that the press, thousands of different comments online taken down, hundreds of mainstream news articles from BBC to Sky Television just deleted the articles and said, we've been given a D notice. So again, England is not as free as folks think. Certainly not if you are actually someone from there. So thank you for coming on. You're at Kalen Rob on Twitter. And, of course, also are the main contributor with the work and the great work we see there at TommyRobinsonOnline.com. So thank you for coming on with us, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me. And you very accurately described what's been going on in this country in the last few days. We've seen news articles completely wiped out. I've spoken to journalists who are really, really keen for information, who have then later said, sorry, we had to pull the whole story. We can't talk about any of this. And it's very, 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 very worrying. There were even journalists, I mean, there's lots of technicalities about what I can and can't talk about. I was in the courtroom when all of this happened. Obviously, there's a reporting restriction. But, you know, when the judge even said that there's a reporting restriction, they closed the books. They wouldn't report on it after that. And it's a very, very, very bizarre situation. Usually reporting restrictions like this are only placed in very, very extreme cases, very, very high-profile cases. And there's not really any reasoning for them to do this in this particular scenario, other than so that people don't know that they've done something wrong. Thank God that you guys are reporting it. Thank God InfoWars is making a deal out of it. And I think Fox News have just spoken about it. And that information is going to the UK. Thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people have been rioting and protesting about this now. They've all been talking about it in the streets. And that information is getting to the general public, despite their attempts to stop it. And so hopefully the ball will just keep rolling and more people will look to the US to find out information about this. But in this country, the situation, how it feels, going to pick up a copy of the local newspaper, going to look on any articles, there's a complete blackout. We can't see anything. The only people talking about it are people on Twitter. It's actually very strange. You know, it's a massive news story and it's completely unreported. It's the feeling in this country right now is absolutely bizarre. It's intensified the mistrust in the media. People are furious. I actually met with someone today who is from the left, who works for a very left-wing, very well-known media outlet. And they said they've never seen anger like this before. They said it's actually very, very worrying where this could go. If something happens to Tommy in prison, sorry, I'm just in the middle of London.
No, I understand you weren't able to get back to your house, and so you just got out of the a vehicle and are talking to us on the side of the road. It sounds great. We totally understand. Again, we're talking the main camera person, the main right-hand guy. Tommy Robinson is with us right now. Kalen Robert's son is here with us. And we're talking about an iron curtain of censorship that's taking place and multiple levels of a total power grab with political correctness, where they arrest police chiefs that talk about Muslim rapes in Sweden, where the Stasi has been reactivated and works for Facebook. You can't make this up, to arrest people that criticize Islam. Twitter and Facebook help the government of Pakistan find people that are atheist. They call it blasphemy, and they are executed. So you have to understand, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, Google, especially Apple, they're already working with the communist Chinese, rounding up the Christians and Buddhists. They're already working, helping the Arab Spring throw gays off buildings. The West funded that. The elites are allied with Islam because there's 1.8 million of them. The West is dying. And the decision hasn't been made to rehabilitate the Muslims and bring them into the West. I don't care if they got brown skin, a bunch of them. But their culture is pure, absolute evil, many of them. The biggest threat to a Muslim is other Muslims, as you know, Kaylin. So get into, I understand this Iron Curtain of tyranny. He simply reported that they were having, as you know, huge trials on the child kidnapping rings that he had first exposed and been put in prison for. They give him a sentence for that. Then he's given 13 months commuted. He simply goes and covers they're having a trial. Nothing about the details of the trial, just that there is a trial. That's totally normal under jurisprudence, English common law, Magna Carta, Bill of Rights, Constitution, and your own law. Everybody knows that. They take him to jail for that, and then they order everyone not to talk about it, period, and denotice hundreds of publications. As you said, we have seen thousands hit the streets. Describe what you've witnessed, the level of awakening here. This is beyond the old Soviet Union.
Well, this is very, very different. I've been with Tommy for about a year and a half now. We've gone to lots of protests. We've been to universities. We've been around the UK. But something very different has happened. And that's that people are now absolutely furious about this. There's a electricity almost in the air of people who have completely had enough of all of it. You're right about what you said with people being terrified and the establishment and our very establishment and our police being terrified about reporting on these grooming gang scandals. We haven't seen press restrictions on any cases with, you know, people like Rolf Harris and all of these big, massive, high-profile cases with white pedophiles and things like that. We have the BBC with helicopters outside their house as soon as there's any accusations. This is completely unprecedented, and people can see straight through it. And you can feel the tension in the air of this country right now. You can cut it with a knife. It's so intense. It's quite scary, actually, seeing where this could go. And obviously, if any harm comes to him, I can predict mass violence across the UK. I can predict towns and cities coming to a standstill. We will not. What's about to happen is a change in a way we have never seen before in this country. Everything is shifting. There are journalists and there are mainstream people. I've met MPs and very, very high-profile people contact me and talk to me and saying that they want to go straight out, guns blazing, and going against this, but they'll probably lose everything. It's torn apart the fabric of the country right now, and everything's sort of fractured. I can't really describe how insane all of this is. I was in an LGBT bar the other day, yesterday, and everybody in there was talking about it. You've got fringe groups on the left, gays and transgender people, everybody shaking our hands and talking about this. It's united everybody who existingly would have been on the far left. It's very strange.
Because the general public, whether you're liberal, conservative, black, white, whatever, you're against pedophilia, even the average Muslim. But you've got this strand of Islam that does it, sex traffic going on, blacks being sold in cages in Libya, all this, and now we're finding out it's there. And as you said, they find a dead girl at Jimmy Savelle's place. It's national news. It should be. You've got helicopters at the Royal Palace when they find a dead kid buried in the backyard. But now suddenly there's a total blackout on these grooming gangs because, well, don't we know, it came out, what, a month ago before they did a blackout, that it turns out the major police and other social worker leaders were using the Muslims in many of these cases. Don't say which ones. I know you can't. Even though it's in the news there, you'll be arrested. Think about that, folks. They have the Muslims like Renfield, some let the Muslims off the hook here, are delivering it to the pedo British elites.
Well, they don't, yes, exactly, and they don't quite know what they've done. I think the people who have instigated this, the people who have orchestrated it, the people who thought it was a good idea to silence him, are so out of touch, they don't quite realize that it's not going to work. In 2007, at the beginning of the EDL, when Tommy was starting out, they used to use these very tactics. They used to silence him, they used to throw him in jail, and no one knew about it. There wasn't the internet, there wasn't social media, there was no one to cause outrage. You do a press blackout and nobody knows what's going on. Now, they do not realize what they have done. In fact, if they wouldn't have put this press blackout, maybe not as many people would have known about this because it's caused such a scandal. They're so out of touch, they don't realize how this is going to erupt and how this is going to completely fail. This is, it's unprecedented.
So it's fair to say, I think you can mark this point as the beginning of the real explosion, the pushback against what's happening. They've jumped the metaphorical shark here. Folks know that these massive grooming scandals are happening in every city. They know Muslims and pedos are above the law, and folks are angry across the board.
Oh, yes, of course they do. I mean, a lot of people in this country, millions of people have known this is going on for ages. This is why we had Brexit. This is why in America you had Trump. We knew that the establishment was covering up cases since Hillsborough, and since before then. It's been proven.
Kaylin Robertson, you're a hero as well with Tommy, the Antifa attacking you guys. Stay there. Back in 2 minutes. We're going to do a few more segments with you. Amazing. TommyRobinsonOnline.com. Go there, make donations. We've also made big donations. I did 20 grand a few months ago. That's why I need you to buy the products at InfoWarsStore.com. I get the treat of having George Soros and Hillary come after me. But quite frankly, that is a treat because it means I'm doing something. I'm a man. I don't like to go through these tribulations, but it's got to be done. I look at Tommy Robinson and how they tried to kill him with bleach in prison and all he went through and losing his house and his tanning salon just because he saw kids being run out of a kebab shop next door. And it actually makes me get tears in my eyes that he hadn't gotten more support. But I think they went over the line because it was Tommy that first exposed it. Tommy that went to prison twice for it. Tommy that didn't even break their fake rule. And now saying no one can report on him disappearing. That is beyond the stuff we hear about in old Russia. Short segment here, another segment coming up. Then Roger Stone is getting attacked by Antifa. When the police stand down, the things you do for free speech worldwide, the examples you and what Judy Brown, or is it Julie Brown? I don't have a teleprompter. What you guys are doing is historic.
Thank you so much. It's really kind to hear things like that. I mean, there are people who go to war and who join the military and have their limbs blown off and things like that, and I find that far more incredible than anything that we would be doing, in terms of fear and things like that. And I don't see how more people aren't doing it. This is what I find really interesting. I don't see how more people wouldn't risk a cushy job or something like that to go out and speak out against this and to go and join this. But
let me say something on that. They've got studies in Europe, UK, and here. And I'm not taking away with Memorial Day coming up to charging a machine gun nest and dying, but you're trained, you're in a group, it's a mission, you're empowered. When you're going against the media, the establishment, and all of it, and social constructs, saying no, they found in studies, is harder than charging machine gun nest. It's rarer than that when the whole social structure is against you. When the social structure says charge the machine gun nest, then get people to do it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, I slightly. Something just, there's lots of cars, there's lots of things going on. I can't really hear what you're saying, but sort of. I think you're talking about...
moral courage sometimes is harder than physical courage.
Yes, it's very, very true. I think this whole thing is just basically a representation about a massive gap between people who have had things far too well for far too long and people who have basically been running the country, the working people of this country, people like Tommy. And this huge gap of representation between them is what's caused such a major resentment and what's caused such a relaxed, mentality that's sort of allowed all of this to happen. So it's quite hard to hear you because of all this chaos. But
you're doing a great job. Keep going.
Yeah, well, this is what we're talking about. I got to know Tommy very well. I came from the left. I came from a very high-paying job. My partner was in the BBC, and we moved from that after we met Tommy and went for lunch and became really good friends with him. He told us about the EDL. He told us about the police corruption. He told us about every single time systematically that the police arrested him, raided his house with his wife and children, tried to scare him, intimidate him, tried to throw him under the bus and tried to silence him. And we said, and this is very interesting, we said that this would never happen again in the day of the internet. This would never, ever happen again when information could be freely shared and people would be able to galvanize. And that's what's so terrifying about this case, is because they've done it again and they've almost succeeded, because they've managed to create a media blackout. And what's scary about this right now is that most of the people that I've been talking to, the feeling in the country, the people who know about this case, can't confirm it. They don't really know if he's actually in prison. They kind of know that he's been arrested. They kind of know that maybe it's kind of problematic and maybe he's been taken away, but they can't read any factual report to prove it's happened.
And doesn't the establishment get that when you grab somebody who's a hero and then won't even let people know if he's in jail or prison when he is, that is the essence of secret police and confirms the 1984 Orwellville has now finally come to London? Western Europe has already banned free speech, and an iron curtain of censorship is descending down over the UK. They're set to pass rules, not a law, that if you criticize Islam or gays, you'll get 6 months in prison. We know we're only about a year or two behind what's happening in the UK. CNN and many others are calling for InfoWars to be shut down, taken off the web. Slate magazine has a professor and others saying, Go beyond censorship. Brainwash young people against InfoWars. Psychologically inoculate them with lies so they don't actually hear what we have to say. We are the most hated news source in the world by globalists. It is so critical that you go to Infowars.com/newsletter and sign up for the free newsletter so we can be in contact with you and so the censors can't bully their way in and block us being able to engage in free, open dialogue as a society. That is critical to this fight. We will prevail if you take action, and I know you will.
The judge did two things. When we were reporting outside, I can talk about this actually. He looked through the window of the top building and was staring down at us, and he was sort of smearing, and I think that's when he was smirking. I don't think that happened in the courtroom, but he was smirking and looking
yeah, somebody, I saw that on Twitter. I was trying to find it earlier. If you got a real
I
Alex
saw that
Jones,
happening. And you know what else I can say? I haven't mentioned this. About 5 minutes before the judge looked through that window at us, the defendant, the rape gangs, were doing this and pointing at us and doing death threats to us on the street from the same window that the judge was smirking at us through 5 minutes before. I haven't reported this yet. And they were making death threats at us. And we reported it to the police right as it happened. We said, there are people in that room, in this courtroom, who are making death threats at us and doing these sort of signals. And what are you going to do about it? If we did that, what would you do? And the police responded, well, that would be a different situation. 100% true. I think there's actually a video clip of it. I need to go through all this. And then the judge looked through that same video. There's the picture. That's the same window that the defendants were making death threats through.
He's been working with Tommy Robinson for over a year and a half. I've had him on many times. He is on the street in London after huge protest all over the city. Almost total news blackout, an order to not cover that he's in prison. The average Brits are everywhere. He says even liberals, you name it, if you just joined us, are saying, where's Tommy? Is he really in prison? Because the media won't report. He is in prison. He's talked to him in prison. He can talk about that, but not why he's in prison. But I'm in the U.S., I can tell you. Fox News talked to the lawyer, talked to others on condition of anonymity. And they admit in the Fox News article on Infowars.com, we've got even more backstory, but Fox is confirming this, that they've told thousands of journalist groups you'll be put in jail too if you talk about Tommy being arrested, period. Now, that has finally gotten people to click out of where they're at. Tommy Robinson, the activist that first exposed the giant child kidnapping rings with the Muslims, who was put in prison for it. It's now all over the news. They're confirmed, but they've now put him in jail for it. This is unbelievable. So, Kaylin Robertson, you're on fire. In the 8 minutes we have, lay out what you can say about Tommy. You're his contact, what he's saying, how he's doing, what you witnessed, where this is going, the huge awakening you've witnessed.
Okay, well, we obviously arrived in Leeds to cover a grooming scandal of 29 men who had groomed hundreds of women. There was no evidence of any reporting restriction on it. We read out simply facts from a reputable, credible newspaper. We read out the allegations. We used the word alleged. There was nothing unlawful at all. We had done all the research beforehand, all of it. It wasn't a contempt of court thing. We weren't releasing information about the case that could jeopardize it or that wasn't already publicly available in the local newspaper. So we just decided to go out there and read out those charges and video the people who were the defendants who were going in. Those people have already had videos taken of them and already had pictures taken of them, so we weren't releasing anything new. The police immediately arrived, 9 of them, walked outside a car, arrested him, took him to a prison, told us that it was for breach of the peace. Very strange, given that it's one man with a phone. We went to the prison cell where he was being kept at. They said he's been released. He's not here anymore. And then we found out that he's being taken to the court. And then the court process started. And for tyrannical law reasons, I can't tell you what happened in that courtroom. It was, I don't know if this is legal or not, but it was minutes long. It was 3 or 4 minutes long in that courtroom. There was no bail. There was no back and forth argument. There was no proper defense. It was minutes. And then he was taken away, gone, straight to prison. No chance of bail, no chance of leaving. That's it, blackout. And then the press couldn't talk about it. The journalists who were in that room closed their notepads as soon as they realized there was a press restriction, and they went home and they didn't talk about it. And that was it. And they thought it was silenced. And that's where we're at now. And now we're in a situation where hundreds of thousands of people in this country are going out and protesting, and they're furious. And people who I never expected to be talking, who are from the left-wing media, are saying that they've never seen anything like this before. They've never seen anger like this before. They're worried about the whole country being burned down. And people have to go to the US, who fortunately have the First Amendment, to read the information about this. They have to go to InfoWars, they have to go to Fox News, and they're losing their minds. Everybody is losing their minds. They can't comprehend that this is happening in a first world democratic country. And that's all I can report on. I can't talk about the rest of the case. There's lots of things that happened in there that were ridiculous, but I can't reveal the information right now. So as soon as I do, as soon as I hear any more contact from Tommy, anything like that, I'll pass it through InfoWars and we'll keep everything updated. But until then, the only thing I can provide between then and now is that he is safe. All accusations of him being assaulted are untrue. It's not a highly Islamified prison where he's staying, so he's safe. That's all I can talk about.
Well, all I can say is, Kaylin Robertson, this is like a movie. This is like V for Vendetta, but it's real history. It has a Tiananmen Square feeling where they're arresting all these thousands of people in Europe that criticize Islam, that the Supreme Courts in Finland and other areas are ruling that Muslim men can have sex with 10-year-old girls against their will. I mean, I'm reading this in mainline papers defending it, and then I'm seeing Tommy, who should be getting national awards from the Queen, you know, for being put in prison, exposing the very Muslim grooming deal in his town where they've gone to prison. And, of course, the next level was girls would disappear. Girls would die. And instead, I mean, this guy gets attacked everywhere. They try to beat him up. He fights off like 6, 7 people himself. He's not even a big guy. Talk about a lion. I mean, this is the real deal. And now his own lawyer, I know, is quoted in Fox. You were in the courtroom, can't get into it. Reportedly, the judge smiled and smirked. He was caught on footage outside looking out the window as Tommy was arrested, smirking. I know you can't get into this, but can you just tell us, you know, if the judge was smirking when Tommy's lawyer said he'll be killed in prison?
The judge did two things. When we were reporting outside, I can talk about this actually. He looked through the window of the top building and was staring down at us, and he was sort of smearing, and I think that's when he was smirking. I don't think that happened in the courtroom, but he was smirking and
yeah, somebody, I saw that on Twitter. I was trying to find it earlier. If you got a real
I saw that happening. And you know what else I can say? I haven't mentioned this. About 5 minutes before the judge looked through that window at us, the defendant, the rape gangs, were doing this and pointing at us and doing death threats to us on the street from the same window that the judge was smirking at us through 5 minutes before. I haven't reported this yet. And they were making death threats at us. And we reported it to the police right as it happened. We said, there are people in that room, in this courtroom, who are making death threats at us and doing these sort of signals. And what are you going to do about it? If we did that, what would you do? And the police responded, well, that would be a different situation. 100% true. I think there's actually a video clip of it. I need to go through all this. And then the judge looked through that same video. There's the picture. That's the same window that the defendants were making death threats through.
Yeah, I blew it up on my big HD screen at my office. I've got a big HD screen at home. And he's smiling like the Joker, looking down out of the window at everybody. I don't know if the internet with the streaming, if it can be clear, but on an HD screen, you could pull it up with the pixels. And then I saw the video you're talking about outside them saying, oh, if it wasn't Muslims, you'd be left alone. I mean, why are the Islamicists all over Europe so protected? Isn't it because they vote as a bloc, and in parliamentary government, even 10% can win any election for anybody? Isn't it that, and isn't it also that they're spending massive amounts of political money?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. I think the main reason is because we had a case, a couple of years ago where there was a Muslim protest in a town. A couple of them decided to, sorry, I have to move on. People are moving. Someone's moving me on here. We had to move. Sorry, I have to move down here because someone's banging that and making noise. There was a Muslim man who was arrested for hitting a police officer over the head with a brick. He then went to the police station where he was being held. The imam came to that police station and said, if you do not release our man, then we will have thousands of Muslim men out here in seconds. And the police released him. And what the problem is that the Muslim population of this country are far more ready to riot and to cause mayhem and to cause massive disruption, and they have the support of the media and they have the support of the politicians, and whatever they do basically controls the narrative and controls the actions of the police. So they're absolutely terrified of saying anything wrong or doing anything wrong to them. We've seen it as evidence. We've seen it ourselves. I've had ex and current police officers tell me in this country, even recently, privately, that they know this is happening, can't release their information. And that's why they're terrified of doing any wrongdo to the Muslim population. And that's why we don't see press restrictions on the other side. We don't see press restrictions for Rolf, someone like Rolf Harris, even though these people got found guilty and things like that. But in the pre-trials, we didn't see any press restrictions like that. And that's why they're so much more protected than Tommy, because the police know that the government, the politicians, and anybody in power has them on side, because they know that they'll go up and they'll build.
And the Muslims are 1.8 billion, about to be 3 billion in 10 years. They are the future. And so they are the new God, and they will riot, and they will kill, and they will attack, and the Brits are all polite and nice. Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. But finally, we see that fire waking up, what we saw yesterday. Just finishing up, Kaylin, you were on fire during that break talking about the singularity happening in the UK, in Italy, what's coming next, and you're the contact, your conversations with Tommy, where he is, how he's doing.
So, firstly, about Tommy directly, just to clear that up, we do have direct contact with him. He is safe. All the rumors about him being assaulted and things like that are not true. He's actually, fortunately, in a prison that isn't highly Islamic, that has lots of people in it that fortunately support him. So that's something that can be put to rest. That's really good. If anything else happens, obviously we'll release that straight away. And then the second point, which we're talking about, there is a massive number of people in this country right now who are from the political establishment, who have been within that for years, who are within the media, and who are very, very well known and influential, who are waiting for to be pulled together to fight against all of this. They're all waiting. I've spoken to them today. I've spoken to them all throughout.
They're waiting for a nucleus. I've had some of the top figures over there call me and say, how do we bring it together? So they're looking for that TV network, that command base. Keep going. They're looking for King Arthur to pull the sword from the stone, and then they're all going to join and galvanize. They're waiting for that first person, that first thing, that first event, so that they can all rise up and do it. Unfortunately, in Britain, everyone's a little bit complacent. Everyone's a little bit to the side, so no one really wants to be the first. I don't think it's that. I mean, I think more of it, you live there, you know better than I, but I've been there many times. I think it's more of not trying to be arrogant or grandstanding, but I think even though organizationally the stone hasn't been pulled, the sword hasn't been pulled, don't you think Tommy, with this event, them coming after him this way, has pulled the sword? Just about. It's about 90% of the way out. It's about something else is about to happen. The energy, the electricity across Europe, across the establishment, across the media, it's just about to happen. It's just on the cusp of everybody coming out onto the streets and everybody coming together and supporting this. There's just something will push it over, and I think it's just a little bit more time. The reason we're waiting is because there's a press ban, and nobody can really confirm if this is true or not unless they're watching InfoWars and Fox, or if they're watching the biggest website, second biggest site in the world, but technically the biggest site, the largest news site in the world, now has as his top banner, anti-immigration protester jailed in London, judge orders press blackout, Robinson silenced. So, but we have Robert's son on with us right now. Kaylin, we'll talk to you again the next few days. Godspeed. Everybody can go to TommyRobinsonOnline.com to donate or to find the latest, or Infowars.com. Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me. Speak soon. Just
briefly, I asked this question. People want to know. It keeps pouring in. What else is Tommy telling you that you can say on air? I know there's this totalitarian North Korean blackout, but what else has he said to you?
We have seconds on the phone, so I'll know more stuff in the next couple of days. But the main information now is just that he's safe and that he's happy for us to pursue a legal battle.
Does he know how big all this is?
Nope, he has no idea. But there's no time to tell him. We have seconds on the phone. There's no time to tell him. He has no idea what's going on right now in the outside world. He has no idea.
That's right. I read when you go into UK prison, you don't get to talk to family for 8 days, and that you're only allowed 30-second phone calls. I actually went to look at Wikipedia. Is that accurate?
Well, it depends on the prison. Some of them are very cushy. Some of them you're allowed phones and internet, but this one isn't, obviously.
All
so
right.
He won't have access.
Kaylin, thank you so much.
Thanks. Speak soon.
Wow. I mean, I am totally blown away, and thank God Drudge Report cares about this. Thank God Fox News at least has an article or two. Thank God Infowars.com is there. Go to DrudgeReport.com. That is beautiful. Top Drudge right now, ladies and gentlemen, is what's happening. And that there's a news blackout. You're arrested. That poor guy, who we've had on probably 10 times before, Kaylin, could not even tell us what was going on. During the break, I was trying to get stuff, and he was scared to do it because they'll throw your butt in prison.
Survival Shield X2 Nascent Iodine. If you're interested in healthy thyroid, if you're interested in well-being, if you're interested in having a higher IQ, which this has been linked to, get your powerful Survival Shield X2 at InfoWarsStore.com.